Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Citrix ShareFile, secure file transfer built for business. Visit sharefile.com. Click on the microphone and enter TWIST for a free 30-day trial. And by Mandrill, the best way to send transactional email from the people who make MailChimp. Sign up today at mandrill.com. And by AWS Activate, the Amazon Web Services startup program. It's easy to start and scale your business with AWS. Visit aws.amazon.com/activate.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis, and on today's This Week in Startups, we have Faraday Bicycles. This is one of the leading Kickstarter projects ever, where an Ideo designer, and Ideo is one of the great design firms that did a lot of work for Apple and other people, an Ideo designer won a design contest to build an electric bicycle. And now he's built it. It's a $3,500 bicycle that could radically change the way we move around cities. And if you think electrical bicycles are boring, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry in places like China and Germany and a bunch of Scandinavian countries. But it hasn't come to the United States yet. So I'm talking to the founder of Faraday about why and why he built this bicycle and what the impact could be on cities. And you're going to learn a lot about hardware and design. It's a great interview, a fascinating guy. I didn't expect him to have actually so much to say, but he really brought it, a great entrepreneur and an amazing product with a potentially disruptive future. Stick with us. It's going to be an amazing episode.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the program. It's Jason Calacanis, your host. You can find me on Twitter at Jason. Yes, I'm showing off. I have my first name on Twitter. I do that every chance I get. And you can follow the show, more importantly, at TWI Startups, This Week in Startups, TWI Startups on Twitter. The show is about startups, entrepreneurs, innovation, and that's what we focus on, is innovating. And today on the program, we're going to get really super innovative. My guest, Adam Vollmer, has made something called Faraday Bikes, and it is the most gorgeously designed bicycle I have ever seen. But more importantly, it is an electric bicycle, correct?
Yeah, you got it.
And so welcome to the program first.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And now, Adam, tell me, why did you want to create an electric bicycle? Or a bicycle company?
Or bike, right. Well, so that's kind of a great starting point. I never did in the first place, I guess, is part of the fun part of the story. So I'm an engineer, designer by background.
Wait, engineer or designer?
Engineer, definitely.
Okay.
I can pretend at design pretty well.
You're a design aficionado who taught yourself how to design? Is that it?
I can fake it well enough until somebody really kind of holds me to it. I spent a long time at Ideo, the design firm.
Oh, wow. So you really are. I mean, Ideo is it.
It was a great firm.
Yeah.
Amazing place. And I think I learned more than anything, I learned an appreciation for design. So more than being able to design, I think I can appreciate good design.
Now, Ideo did a lot of the work for Steve Jobs and a lot of concept work. Were you there during some of that?
No, that was well before my time. But
was it 80s and 90s?
Yeah, way back in the day. Original Apple mouse was Ideo. They have the prototypes of the first Apple mouse. It's crazy. And
they run this company in a very unique fashion. What's it like to work there? How do they work at Ideo? Because there was a 60 Minutes on it, and there was a bunch of books on it. I mean, people talk about their process of ideation and creating new stuff. What's it like to work there? How do you work there?
Oh, it's a great place to work, first off.
Yeah.
And it's funny that the whole process, the Ideo process, I think has kind of gotten very much sort of broadcast and duplicated and replicated pretty intentionally, right? Ideo really, they put it out there. It's kind of, it's their secret sauce, but instead of kind of holding it tight, they just sort of say, here it is. Do it, practice it.
Design thinking, right? Is that the
design thinking is kind of the.
So what's the difference between design and design thinking?
Well, so I think kind of have to look at the story of Ideo over time, right? So I think Ideo has kind of gone from being a firm that does design in a very kind of hardware and product oriented sense, right? So the Apple mouse is a great example of that. Making beautiful objects, which is still very much a part of their DNA. I think over time they've realized that whole process of how do you approach a problem and think about it and research it and understand it, iterate, prototype, all that. You can apply that to designing financial products or service products as well as you can to cars and bikes and that kind of thing. So
it's not just a physical object of art. It could be, how do I send money to somebody.
Exactly,
How do
yeah.
I get a taxi? Whatever it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So can I ask what projects you worked on there, or is it like a veil of secrecy? Like what type of projects did you work on?
I had some really crazy ones. I mean, part of the coolest thing about being there was you get to work on wild stuff, right? So some of them, less
wild,
less public than those. Well, they're all kind of wild.
Oh, they're all wild. Okay, yeah, they don't take an assignment unless it's awesome. Is that right?
No, I mean, it's kind of the fun thing is so part of their their magic, right? Is they have this process, but it's really not the process. They have amazing people. They have the best people I've ever worked with. It's this really kind of amazing, creative, open culture, and you're encouraged to kind of think out of the box and challenge assumptions, and it's fantastic. I worked on designing carrying containers for Oreo cookies, random stuff.
Random.
Sounds like a random, not interesting problem until you realize there are people every day who haul literally tons of cookies around. It's a hard, challenging. They do it at 3 a.m. in dense urban areas, really challenging human problems there. And so it's actually kind of an interesting little nut to crack.
So people baking cookies, having to put them in trays or
just
transporting
literally delivering them, getting them from the Oreo wherever they get made to Safeway.
Without being cracked.
Without being cracked, and getting there without waking people up.
Wow, so that's a bizarre. So they just somebody from the Oreo company, whatever it is, like Nabisco or something, says we need to get these Oreos safely. Let's go to Ideo and get a cool process for doing that.
How that one came in, I have no idea. But it kind of landed in our plate. We had a great team working on that, came up with some cool solutions, some that were very product-based, some that were more procedural and process, but it's a great project. That's one example. The most interesting one, the one I learned the most on, I designed tampons.
You designed tampons?
Designed tampons. So totally redesigned the tampon.
Wow.
I can't tell you how much I learned on that one.
Yeah, I can imagine you learned a lot designing a new tampon. And let me ask this. You obviously didn't come in with a lot of personal experience in this regard.
I had no idea. I literally never
How
held
does
one.
a man who has never inserted a tampon or maybe even seen one inserted, how do you learn about the issues of tampons and how they work? Do you do a focus group? Do you do interviews with people? I mean,
exactly. That's exactly what we did. And I think part of the cool thing about design and engineering is it's problem solving, and it's easy enough to solve problems for yourself, right? Because you know what you want, what you need. Having the kind of empathy challenge of figuring out what somebody who you have no kind of ability to relate to in a practical sense, what they kind of need and want, it's a great challenge.
Yeah.
It was asking questions and interviewing and observing and reading and just everything you can imagine.
And what was did you come up with a singular innovation in tampon technology, or something that was my God, this is we can really hang our hats on this being an amazing moment in tampon development history?
We kind of did. We came up with this really cool sort of twist to the way the tampon works, which I unfortunately kind of can't talk about.
Okay.
That's sort of but the cool, the interesting outcome of the whole thing, what this all hinged on was this realization that tampons seem mundane probably if you're a 35 or 40-year-old woman, you've been using them for a decade, but when you're new to it, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. It's terrifying if you're a young woman. It's terrifying if you're a father trying to teach young women how to do this.
Yeah.
There's all these pain points, and that was kind of the central hook of how do you improve on that process.
That's interesting. Because I was about to say, putting a man on the project were you shocked that they said hey, we want to have you on the tampon project? And did they specifically say, hey, we need to have some people who don't have vaginas on this project to maybe get an outside perspective on it?
It's funny. It was a twist. So I was on another very cool project. I was working on improving water access in India. So totally different.
Access in
sphere.
India. Got it. Okay. So
Very
you went
different.
from transporting Oreos, and then you got water.
In India, designing carrying containers, working on that, came back. And what happened, they had a stellar team of female designers working on the project in the very early stages. So when they were kind of very early on researching the space, getting into that, it was a wonderful team of female designers. They hit a point where they needed an engineer to come in and really sort of get into design. And at the time, we didn't have any female engineers that we do now. So I came in for that.
Got it. All right. So how do we get to a bicycle, right?
So in the midst of all this, working on crazy stuff, I'm a cyclist. I'm kind of a lifelong bike rider and racer, builder, advocate, you name it, sort of a passion.
You're a bike nerd.
I'm a bike nerd. That's exactly what it is. So Ideo got approached by a big contest, I guess, in the bike industry that runs every couple of years, which basically challenges all the top bike builders in the country to design the ultimate modern utility bike, the ultimate bike for modern living.
So modern living being like for the every person, every man, every woman.
Kind of undefined. It's actually literally they have this
interpret it?
problem statement that's kind of like make of it what you will, right?
Oh, okay. So a little ambiguity.
Little ambiguity
there. Like it could be an urban person, it could be somebody not urban, it could be whatever.
So the first part is kind of figure out what is the problem statement.
Yeah.
So Ideo came to me because I was the sort of bike nerd in chief at the time, and said, "Hey, would you want to take this on?" And I jumped at it. It was a great project, and it was fully a side project. It was something that I pulled a few people together. You know, we would get together in the evenings, have a bottle of wine, brainstorm, kind of discuss, share our experiences, talk to other people, think about what we could do, frame the problem, like you said. And what emerged from that was that bikes have been around for a long time.
How long? I mean, hundreds of years.
Over 100 years. So kind of turn of the century is when the bikes really took off.
Really? Okay, I thought maybe it was 200 years old, but yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Could be wrong with that.
I don't know. I never thought about that question. When did people first start riding bicycles, and where?
It started so. Gosh, I'm gonna get this all wrong. I've actually read a book on this. I should know this.
The book on the modern day bicycle.
There's a great book on the modern bicycle. I'll tell you the name of it later. It's actually a beautiful history of kind of the whole process of the bike. But it's interesting. I want to say this is like it was right before the invention of the automobile. There was this period in time where bikes were totally ubiquitous in the U.S. even.
Yeah.
So it was the way that everybody got around. It was this massive thing, and it's still I think to this day more patents have been filed in the patent office on bikes than any other thing. So you take something like that with this long 200-year history and sort of say,
Paris, 1817 and 1818, according to the Wikipedia.
200 years.
Yeah,
I was
Just,
off. I was close.
I was with you right there, but okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you do the design contest.
Yep.
And
well, so kind of looking at this and thinking about how do we improve on this, we started thinking about electric bikes. Kind of this like interesting emergent category in bikes.
And they used to be everywhere, like you're saying, but then they disappeared for cars.
Yeah, so there was.
And now electric is emerging.
Electric, and it has been for a long time. Like back in the 70s, there were these early electric bikes, and they had lead-acid batteries, and they were super heavy.
Yeah.
They broke down. They caught on fire. It was generally a bad scene.
Were the 70s here in the United States? Or
yeah.
Because I remember going to China and in Germany, and obviously France had gasoline-powered bicycles, which I sort of had a little fetish for a while. But I remember in China 10 years ago, and also Germany, these electric bikes started to take off.
Yep.
Do you have any idea why they took off in those markets and not here?
Well, so great question. So China, kind of for different reasons. So I think China is a huge e-bike market. Like I said, it's been growing for about 10 years. They sell about 23 million electric bikes a year. 23 million? Huge number.
And there's a couple billion people there, so if it's 23 million, it's not an insignificant percentage of the population.
No, you go there and
1%.
What happens is you have kind of your folks who can't afford anything but a bicycle, and they've ride a bike. 20 years ago in China, 30 years ago, everybody rode a bicycle, right? And as you kind of got an emerging middle class, the car became the aspiration. And the stepping stone to the car is the electric bike. So you go from your bike to your electric bike. It's $1,000 for an electric bike, or maybe 500 versus a car. And so it's this very utilitarian form of transport for all these people. It's a really different kind of product. People don't pedal them. They have these kind of funny little like peripheral pedals, but nobody pedals.
Uses them. They're just basically like
they're really
ghetto scooters.
They're really wimpy scooters.
They're like would-be scooters. All right, when we get back from the commercial break, I want to talk about the formation of the company and the Faraday Bikes and actual launching of the Kickstarter and everything on This Week in Startups. Thanks to our friends at Citrix ShareFile. Yes, Citrix ShareFile is designed for business, and you can use it, and you can trust it, and you can send files securely. Yes, that's right. Intellectual property, contracts, term sheets, all the important things that you do not want to attach to an email, you can send as a secure link with ShareFile. And of course, you can access these from any computer or any mobile device, and you can send files of almost any size. Here's how we use it here. We just use it to request a file. We click, and it goes to a specified folder. We get email alerts when people have uploaded stuff. So if it's a term sheet or something, I'm angel investing. And you can go see those downloads. And you control who has access to it in a very granular way with a very detailed level of permission, which is very cool. And we also share all these large video clips that we do here with the show and the conferences. So if you want to try it, go ahead and go to sharefile.com, and I highly recommend you do, and click the podcast microphone button and use the offer code TWIST. There's no credit card required, and it's a 30-day free trial. just click on the podcast microphone button and use the offer code TWIST. 30-day free trial, no credit card required. And here's an exclusive ShareFile video for you. Yes, the top 10 questions asked and answered by the world's greatest investors, including Dave Cohen, Joanne Wilson, Dave McClure, Steve Jervis and Brad Fell, Mark Suster, and more. Step 1, sign up for ShareFile. Use the promo code TWIST. And then number 2, request a file by sending it to sharefile@launch.co. That's it. Super simple. It's an all-new video, and it's only available through ShareFile. Thanks again to our friends at Citrix ShareFile. We love you guys for just making a great product and for supporting the program. Let's get back to this amazing episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. It's a very special edition where we're going to talk about electric bicycles, which is a massive, massive global trend that hasn't hit it here yet in the United States.
Not yet.
And our hero, Adam, is formerly of Ideo, where he worked on a lot of interesting things, and Faraday Bikes you can follow on Twitter. And you believe that this trend that is so prevalent in China, and I think Germany, and maybe a couple of other places, is going to come here?
I think so. So most of Europe has really taken off there.
For bikes or electric bikes?
For electric bikes.
Okay.
So Europe has right now it's about a $5 billion market in electric bikes.
$5 billion with a B.
It's a very serious market.
And
there.
these cost on average 1,000 or 500 or about 1,000, I think, in Europe.
In Europe, they're around $2,000 is the average price point.
2,000
and up.
Wow.
And up.
Yeah, so
very premium product.
Means that's a couple million bikes.
So I think Germany alone, I think for instance last year sold about 1.5 million e-bikes.
That's incredible.
It's really.
Why are the Germans so into this exactly?
Well,
we know why the Chinese are, but the
Germans, the Dutch, the Swiss, all these companies, the British are kind of catching up.
Yeah.
All these countries have cultures that revolve around the bike, right?
Right.
So they have great infrastructure. People use bikes for transport. You've got in the Netherlands, you've got 30% of all people get around by bike.
Yeah, they use bikes already. So electric bikes are an extension that lets them go further.
Well, exactly.
Not sweat. What?
Both.
What's
right?
the appeal?
So you go further, faster, or you take a set distance, right, and you cover it in half the time, which if you're commuting to work is hugely appealing, right? Yeah. You get there without sweating. So it's kind of like you take people who are already relying on a bike for transport. They have that habit already, and then you kind of offer them this thing that's wonderful. It's fast.
You're augmenting it.
You're augmenting it, right?
How fast do you go on these things?
So it depends on where you're at and what the legal kind of limits are. It's basically legally
Let's talk
limited.
about what the bikes are capable of, and then go back to the legal limits. What can you do on one of these bikes? Like, what's the fastest one that exists right now?
Well, so that's a great question, and there's not a great answer. I mean, you can kind of take an electric bike from what we have, which is a very sort of like bike-like electric bike, and go anywhere from into the hot rod spectrum where it really starts to look like a motorcycle. You're going.
All right, let's take that out of the
take
table.
that
But
out.
something that looks like a normal bike, has normal bike tires.
Yeah.
What's the max speed you would feel comfortable going on that? Because people drive down hills at 50 miles an hour on bicycles. I see this.
Yeah.
But what would people be comfortable on an electric bike doing, or an electric bike capable of? Could it do 30?
30's, yeah, 30's doable. So I think 25 and 30 is kind of the range that you start to feel like you're pushing the upper limits a little bit.
Because you're going to fall off and it's not going to be nice.
It's really fast. I mean, that's really fast on a bike.
You're going to get hurt when you fall off.
You're in traffic. You're going to get hurt when you fall off.
Right.
You start thinking about, maybe you want bigger tires or better brakes, all those kind of things.
I see.
So that's kind of the high end. So the legal limit in the U.S. for an electric bike on road, there's this kind of caveat that if it's for off-road use, you can sky's the limit. But for legal on road, it's 20 miles an hour.
Oh, so you have to just regulate it to 20.
So we just basically what happens is when you hit 20, the motor kind of cuts out or sort of gracefully folds out, and you kind of hover around that limit.
And so what about people on regular bikes? Where do they typically go?
Well, so it depends a lot on the kind of bike. Yeah. So if you're like a racer type on your $6,000 carbon fiber bike and your spandex, you might go 18 to 25 miles an hour if you're like really, really throwing down, working really hard. Yeah. On a very fast, aggressive aerodynamic bike.
Right.
I would say your commuter, your kind of typical average commuter is kind of more in the 12, 13, 14.
Okay,
range.
So a human could go faster than that, but there's no laws against humans speeding on bikes in cities, or are there?
I don't know the answer exactly.
I don't think there are. But you can't be reckless. You certainly can't run red lights.
You've got to stop at your red lights and stop at your stop signs, which we by all means encourage all that.
Yeah. And actually, there's been some people doing crazy stuff with these bicycles, especially here in San Francisco. Like this, there's an app where people try to set records. You know about this? Like, Gina can look it up.
Yeah. Strava's
Strava.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have routes and they try to set records.
Yeah.
And tragically, some guy was doing one of these records and he crashed into and killed somebody.
Well, so I think like anything, right? You've got like
I'm not blaming Strato or whoever
Yeah.
it is, but they do sort of promote a leaderboard of who's fastest in certain sections. So
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that people who are doing it are not responsible.
Yeah.
But this person was trying to break a record.
I think you get this kind of it's the same with regular bikes too. You get this kind of small minority, people who are kind of really pushing the fringe way too far.
Yeah.
And they kind of give everything a bad name.
Yeah.
It's just no different from the people who are kind of out, aggressively running red lights or skidding through
Crazy,
the streets
yeah.
and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. It kind of
All right,
tarnishes
so
it.
we didn't get this jump yet, but it's really good that we're getting this whole lay of the land with electric bikes. I'm fascinated. Why did you decide to make this into a company, and how did that transition happen? Was it like 5 years later you decided, I got to do this bike thing, or you just told Ideo, listen, I'm out, I got to go do a bike company?
Yeah, I know. So back to that. So we did this contest. It was fantastic. We ended up winning the contest.
You won.
We won the contest. It was
How many
great.
contestants?
Like 40 or so, I think.
Wow, and these were serious competitors.
It was a mix of kind of independent frame builders, folks who build beautiful handcrafted frame built or hand built bikes. Some design firms, some student teams. But we won that. It was a great outcome. Got a lot of press. And I had people, both who were kind of casual observers and then industry folks saying, this is outstanding. And this is different from what we thought an electric bike could be. Mm-hmm. And we think there's great potential here. We'd like to see this in the market. And,
Wow.
At that point, I had been working my nights and weekends and kind of every non-work hour waking minute for 3 months on it. And you have that kind of crazy enthusiasm that comes with that, and I threw my hat in. So I went back to Ideo and said, I'd like to pursue this. I think there's something here. And we kind of worked out a situation where basically they kind of supported me in getting out the door and setting up the company. And
Oh, so they get a little equity on the way out or something?
Exactly,
So they get to be a partner, and so they don't lose anything, and you feel good about it.
Yep.
That's great. So that's always great when you hear like some entrepreneurial project comes out of a big company like that, and they're reasonable about their alumni going and doing something amazing.
It's pretty unusual case. Certainly not like a rubber stamp carbon copy kind of thing they have. But I think in this case it worked. We had great traction. We had a great project. We had a founder who was really kind of excited to run with it.
Did you raise money for this?
I did. Yep.
And so you got angel investors to invest in it, or just the Kickstarter?
So we started with Kickstarter. Did that. We had a great.
Here's the Kickstarter page. I'm going to play the video while you talk, but you hit the goal of 100.
Hit the goal of 100. Passed it. We hit 177,000.
Okay, 177. So you blew the goal away.
Blew the goal away. One of the cool things I think about our campaign is at the time we were, and I think we still are, one of only a few projects that were at $3,000+ per pledge, basically. Kind of
That's
really
a big pledge.
It's a big ticket item.
Yeah, and I remember when this came out, I almost put my credit card in, and I was just like, "Oh."
You shouldn't have said that. I'm gonna sell you a bike now before I leave.
I might have just buy it. I mean, anyway, keep going. But look at the gorgeousness of this. I want to stop for a second because we're watching the video right now, and look at that little button you press to turn on the bike on the back. It looks like a retro bike that is also a new bike in the same way. It looks like Apple or somebody amazing, Jawbone or something made this. But where are the batteries? I see that little control unit in the back. You press a button. Is that the battery?
That's the brain, called the brain. It's
Okay.
the controller and everything. The battery.
What is it, an Arduino or something?
It's how we prototyped the first ones. Now it's a more custom, complex circuit board.
Gotcha.
But
So you got a little computer in there of some type.
Yep.
And the battery is, I just saw it point to it, is the frame.
It's built right into the frame. Yeah.
I mean, that's the key innovation here, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
most people put these dorky, huge battery packs on where like the bike rack would be in the back.
Right. Or they make the frame so big that you basically have like a shoebox in your frame.
Yeah, you try to straddle the thing, and you can't straddle it because it's this huge shoebox in the middle of the triangle.
When it weighs 60 pounds and it's a mess. And
So you feed all the batteries into there. What are they like? Is it like those literally like those AA, the D batteries? It looks like slide into there.
It's basically the same battery that Tesla uses, more or less. Like a high capacity lithium-ion Panasonic battery.
Are they custom made for that size, or do they make like a standard size that happened to fit in the frame?
We take a standard battery and build a pack around like exactly in the same way that Tesla did. It's kind of like a standard, almost ubiquitous battery format, and then built a totally custom pack around that. So
wow. And so you slide them into those tubes.
Slides right in. So it's basically a big pack. It looks like a big kind of silver tube. You just slide it right in. So the whole thing comes out. So if you have a bike and in let's say 4 years, you got to replace the battery, you take it back to a bike shop.
Got it.
About 10 minutes, they pop it out, they put a new one in. Cool thing is batteries are progressing along. So in 4 years, you're going to go from 20 miles of range, where we're at now,
maybe
to
30.
25, 30.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing. So
that's
you're at
kinda nice.
20 miles of range.
Yep.
Under what conditions? Because in San Francisco, you have some hills here.
That's SF riding. So
20 miles in SF.
Yeah, so we're here. I rode here from Soma, our office. We're right down the street. So we ride. Let's see, just for perspective for the SF crowd, we go up here, up to the bay, up to Kersey Field, out to the Golden Gate Bridge, over to Sausalito and back to the park, back down to Soma. That's our sort of 20-mile loop.
Wow.
And it's
so Sausalito and back.
over the bridge and back.
Over the bridge and back is tremendous.
It's great. Yeah.
And I have a Tesla. I actually have both of them, and the battery range.
Yep.
Range anxiety is the thing that everybody says to try to get people to not buy electric vehicles.
Right.
I could tell you it's complete utter bullshit when it comes to cars because nobody drives more than 50 or 100 miles a day, and these cars can all do 200-300 now. So, are people criticizing this based on that? And what's your answer to it?
It's a great question. So I think a lot of e-bikes out there worry about that and they design for it. And the problem with it is when you design for it and you say, we're going to give you 80 miles of range or 60 miles of range, your bike turns into a beast. It's 60 pounds, super heavy. If you ever do kill the battery, let's just say you forget to charge it, it's unrideable, right? You're
the weight's too high.
The weight's huge, yeah. You've got this giant motor, giant battery pack, and it weighs a ton. So we said, let's just exercise some self-restraint. Let's make the bike under 40 pounds. Let's give you 20 miles of range, which we think is a great amount for getting you to and from work. You can charge it at the office if you want. And the result is if the battery dies, you just pedal the bike like a regular bike.
You have a regular bike.
And you would never know the difference, right?
And you wouldn't know the difference. Because a regular bike weighs 10, 15 pounds. So you're at 5 pounds for the battery?
Well, so a regular bike, like a city bike like we've got, right, is maybe like 25 to 30. So we added 10 pounds to that.
You added 10 pounds to it, right. So it's really not that big
not that bad,
of a compromise.
You can put, racks in a pannier on your bike and make it weigh more than that.
All right, so let's get to the $1,000,000 question. These have been ridiculously expensive. How expensive is this gorgeous bicycle?
I want to know how much you think it is first. I'm going to ask you.
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I know that years ago when I started getting obsessed with these, and I'm talking about the 80-mile ones or whatever, they were like $5,000, $6,000, $4,000. And I almost bought one, but I was like, why would you buy that and not a $5,000, Vespa that can go, like you can buy the 4C, like the big one.
Yeah.
Or you could buy for $2,000 or $3,000 one. So I was like, let's get a full-scale Vespa. But then I was like, maybe I don't want to ride that. So anyway, the price didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
That an electric bicycle was more than the gorgeous Vespa. And they used to be ugly, not gorgeous like this. So I'm going to say $4,000.
So we're at 35.
3,500.
Yep.
Which I think, for a 1.0 is a pretty good price point.
I think it's a fantastic price point.
Yeah.
I mean, we're solidly at the kind of like upper end of the premium market, right?
Right.
But you can spend $6,000 on an electric bike easily nowadays.
Easily, yeah.
So I think it's a great place to be.
It's not mass market though.
It's not now. Well, it isn't, right? I do think you have to think a little bit about what are you framing it against. So
frame it for me. How do you frame it?
Well, so the average cost of a car, right? Not even like a.
So we're not comparing to bikes. We're comparing to cars.
I think you have to because this. And people really have to ride these for a little while to get the difference. But we can let you go 20 miles an hour, almost without breaking a sweat for up to 20 miles, which means, the average commute in the U.S. is 12 miles. We can get almost anybody in the U.S. to work very easily.
So you really, if you're benchmarking against a bicycle, it's a wrong benchmark.
I think so in a way. I mean,
I
think it does.
I understand that actually. I kind of buy it.
So we've got, and what we have a lot of is people who, it's a stretch to come in and say, sell your car. Don't own a car at all. Right. That's scary to Americans.
But you could get 2 of these and sell the second car.
You could get 2 of these, use Uber once a week, have a Zipcar membership. I mean, there's so many. If you take a car to the equation. So many permutations
for not getting a car. When we get back from commercial break, I want to talk about when you're going to ship these and what the consumer reaction has been to the people who are using it early on. And where do you see this in 5 or 10 years when we get back on This Week in Startups? Hey, Mandrill app. I love you guys. You do a great job over there with transactional email. Yes, the folks at MailChimp have a transactional email program. So what is transactional email? If you don't know, it's very simple. When you get that password reset or a friend request or somebody followed up on your comment or your order's been shipped or your order's been delayed or any of those things, that's transactional email. It's the lifeblood of any startup or service. It's those important email messages that, you communicate with the customer important events happening. Well, you can go and try to do this yourself and put up servers and then try to get through the gates of the big ISPs who are very sensitive to spam and they're getting assaulted. Well, Mandrill actually solves all those problems. You just very simply plug it in. Your developers can add it. There's a simple API. It's easy to use. And the first 12,000 emails you send a month are always free, and there is no usage gating. Every feature is available to everybody. We use it for the transactional emails at the hackathon as an example. And they have mobile apps for iOS and Android, and you can monitor its performance. It's effortless. It's easy, just like all of the MailChimp apps. But Mandrill is absolutely special. Go to mandrill.com, and you can thank @MandrillApp on Twitter for making such a great product at such a great price. It's so much value, and you're going to love it. I guarantee it. I mean, we use it here. It's awesome. Thanks again, Mandrill. Let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. Yes, Faraday Bicycles is on the show, a $3,500 bicycle that is gorgeous and can go 20 miles and has Tesla batteries in it, like Panasonic batteries, and is designed by the geniuses or a alumni of the geniuses at Ideo, Adam Vollmer. Go check out FaradayBikes.com, and you can follow @Faraday Bikes on the Twitter. When we left our hero Adam, we were talking about the price and how do you compare it. Yeah, it's really, if you're living in an urban environment, you shouldn't have a car anyway. You got Uber, you got Lyft, you got Zipcar. So this is like part of the solution.
It's part of the solution. And so many people don't have cars. I mean, it's remarkable. For the first time since the car was invented, literally, which I think you just fact-checked me on the date earlier, car ownership is declining around the world. So people just are not buying as many cars. It's not going away, but ownership is declining as cities get more and more urbanized and dense.
Yeah. And people share.
And people share.
The sharing economy is just going to be the biggest impact because you need to have one at some point to pick up or go to Tahoe or something. But so they're sitting dormant 95% of the time.
I have a great little Mazda, and it's sitting in my driveway.
You use it 2 hours a month
for it. Yeah, exactly. So for a lot of people, you've got, maybe you're a family, you've got 2 cars. We've got a ton of customers who are getting rid of a car, and they're getting this bike. And again, like you said, you get rid of a car, you have this huge budget all of a sudden to think about how you can better address your transportation needs. Not just where you allocate that money, but like how do you get more convenience for yourself? How do you have
and you
nicer
don't need a parking spot. Like this is the thing that people didn't realize about Uber. Certainly when I invested in Uber, none of us ever thought in the first couple of months or year that it would actually not be a replacement for taxis, but really be a replacement for car ownership.
Cars. Yeah.
That was the big. I mean, that's why this is a unicorn company and like so transcendent. All right, I'm going to ask you a hard question. These things have not taken off in the United States. Why?
So a couple reasons. One, I think that transportation is a very personal thing for us here in the U.S., right? We've got a legacy of muscle cars, of cars that kind of define us as who we are, whether you're a Honda person or a Ford person or whatever else. Yeah. I can't sell somebody something as a transportation tool and make it ugly and dorky and clunky, right?
Right.
I think Tesla got that with the electric car, and it's a phenomenal success. Yeah. E-bikes, same story. So that's part of the equation.
That's why this is gorgeous, and that's why you spent so much time. And it's a little expensive because it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and that'll come down with time, right? There's that.
5 years from now, you'll be up to version 3 or 4. I'm guessing.
5 years from now, we'll be out of ways, so we'll have a couple different models, a couple different price points. So 5 years out, I see us with a sub $2,000 bike.
Sub 2,000.
Yeah.
So then it starts to be half the market could afford it, 2/3 of the market probably.
I think so.
And right now, this is the top third of the market can afford it. So
yeah.
you sort of
Again, if you think that a Honda Civic costs $5,000 a year to own, it's the price of ownership, right?
Yeah.
It's a hidden cost. We don't think about it. But if you compare it to that, and you look at this bike's got a 4 or 5 year lifetime on a single battery. It can last 10 years. Yeah. It amortizes out. So we look at things like financing and how do you kind of reduce the barrier to ownership and everything else.
That's clever.
It goes a long way.
So the United States, people are very tied to their. We have some places that are very spread out. A bicycle's not going to cut it right now. And then some people are defined by these. But we're starting to actually see the bike sharing programs in New York have had extraordinary success in other cities.
And right here in SF too.
And in SF, although they seem pretty meager here, don't they?
I haven't spent a lot of time in New York comparing to theirs, but I think it's newer here.
Yeah, and so cities now, because of the density, are getting more in line with this. That kind of puts the wind at your back.
Yeah.
Would a city, or would you be talking to a city about maybe acquiring 100 of these right now? So, and listen, if you lie, I'm a poker player. I'm going to know. So have you spoken to a city about doing 100 of these?
We
I'm
haven't,
kidding.
We haven't. No.
You can lie if you
we've
want.
talked to some bike share programs. We talked to some of the more private ones. There's a handful out there.
There are private bike sharing programs? I didn't know that.
Private vehicle sharing programs.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. Like, I get you. Private vehicle sharing.
Yeah.
Right.
Who are getting into bikes, right? As everyone else
Are they?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that. Is there an example of one of those that's public, like of a sharing company that's doing bike sharing?
I
don't think any of that.
I'll like go on a limb. So City Car Share, I think, is introducing bikes. I
That's
believe.
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, so there are sharing companies like a Zipcar or something who might come into the space and say, "Hey, grab one of these."
That's my. That's
your
the
guess.
direction I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got folks like here in SF, Scoot Networks.
Oh yeah, Scoot Networks launched at the Launch Festival. Yeah, those guys are great.
So they're doing mopeds again. electric
Mopeds,
mopeds.
yes.
I can see those guys potentially over time expanding into a broader range of vehicles. So I think there's those kind of players as well as your city players, right? And the nice thing is they potentially have more flexibility. I think in terms of what kind of product they look at and whatever else. So
yeah,
anyway.
they might be. So.
So, but I think back to your kind of comment
Yeah.
about the sharing networks. I think there's potential there. I think the product we have right now is not a good fit. It's a very kind of, again, like I said, premium thing. It's beautiful. When you design a bike for a public bike sharing network, it has to be a tank. I mean, those bikes weigh 50 pounds and they don't have any batteries. in
Because
them.
people abuse the heck out of them.
And they sit outside for, think about New York, 12 months a year, outside, under a foot of snow.
Yeah.
It's a very different design challenge. Not to say we couldn't do it, but it's not the problem we've tackled for now. The thing, though, is that when you're New York and you invest however many millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in that program, the other thing you do alongside that is you invest in your infrastructure. You put in bike lanes. You make a street
Bloomberg
safer.
has gone crazy with those bike lanes. I mean, New York is incredible now.
Exactly. I mean, it's all part of a plan. So these guys know you can't just put the program in. You've got to support the infrastructure, and that plays right into our hand. That's free support for us.
Right, because if they open more lanes, how is San Francisco rate on that? Like in terms of bike lanes and respecting bicyclists, is it halfway there or? Not really.
I couldn't tell you like an actual rank. It's fantastic.
No, in your opinion, as a
It's
bicyclist.
Great.
The bike nerd.
As a bike nerd,
Yeah.
The bike coalition here does an awesome job. We've I think over the last 5 years, the number of bike lanes going right down to our office right here on A Street, we have it's like a boulevard. You
Wow.
can ride protected wide lane right down the street. Across the U.S., we have a long way to go. We're not Scandinavia by any stretch. It's getting a lot better. It's exciting.
Let's talk about shipping. These are starting to ship. And how many people ordered in the Kickstarter? Like 30, 40, 50 of them?
Kickstarter was 47.
47.
50.
So that's your first run.
Yep. Well, so and then we sort of quadrupled that since. So we're shipping about 200 in this first run.
200 in the first run, and then you quadrupled it, so you got another, 300 coming after that?
Well, so we quadrupled it from Kickstarter. So we went
quadrupled
50 to 200. So we're shipping about 200 in this first run.
200 in the first batch.
Yep.
And do people have them yet? And how many people have them? What's the reaction been?
Some do. So production has been hard, right? We're doing a lot of this in the U.S. It's our first
you're producing
run.
in the U.S.?
Currently, yeah.
Yeah.
A ton of benefit for us in that, and just the sort of speed, the reaction, time to market. A ton of headaches as well, and kind of managing smaller vendors and doing a lot ourselves. So there's been some challenges. We're getting them out. We've got first couple dozen out the door so far.
So these are the early true believers.
They're the early true believers. They're literally our Kickstarter backers are picking them up. We had a few people come by today and get them.
Wow.
The reaction is awesome. People love them. It is so cool. I mean, I have to say, first off, we have the best backers I could have ever imagined or asked for in Kickstarter. People have waited 2 years now at this point.
2 years.
Really long time. They waited through. It's so hard. Like it's a very seasonal thing, right? So they waited through 2 summers of not having this cool bike.
I waited like 2 or 3 years for each of the Teslas.
Which is brutal. Yeah, it's the same story.
But you know what? If these companies are going to work, you have to have those backers who are willing to put the money up and wait.
Well, and I think these people get it, right? They get that they're going to get a cool bike at the end of the day, and they're going to be the first ones on the block for a long time to have it. But I've really let them in the process and kind of shown them like, hey, you're not just getting a bike, you're getting a company off the ground, and here's what that looks like.
Did you raise extra capital for the company or just a Kickstarter money?
We did. So we raised some equity capital as well.
Oh, really? Now, who invested in that? Is it venture capital investment, or is it more like angels who are
more of like an angel?
What are they? Bike nerd angels?
No, I think
they're real angels.
I think they're real angels. There's some
like
great folks
legit
in there.
Angels, yeah. Anybody I know?
I think
like
some folks you
famous
know.
people, Kevin Rose or anybody? Or
I think so. Tom McInerney is one of our.
Oh, Tom is?
investors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I was just talking to him earlier. Said to say hi.
Yeah, he did cloud and everything. Wow.
Yeah. So I think we've got folks like Tom who believe, I think, in the vision that we see for urban transit in the future.
Yeah.
They think these guys get it, right? Like they work in companies and markets that are very urban.
Yeah.
They're very progressive. They get that the people in these markets want to be on bikes. They don't want to be in minivans in the suburbs.
It totally makes sense. I think it's going to work. And when are you going to do your 2.0 Kickstarter in like wow us with the next version?
Fall is when we're going to debut the next one, the next model. So,
And of course, you're going to do a Kickstarter, right? You had such good success
I
there?
think it's
or
been a
you do it
great-
on your own site this time?
well, we'll see. We'll see. I think it's been a great platform. You know, Kickstarter has come a long way. We did Kickstarter back in the really early days of Kickstarter.
Yeah,
It was like-
this could go nuclear. You know, you could go supernova on this. They might have 0.
I think it'd be great. Well, I think too is we won't have a 2-year delay to get that one out. The next one is going to be so much easier.
under
Second
a
time
year,
around.
yeah.
We have battery technology that we're going to redeploy. We've got we have so
You got
many things we've solved.
employees, you got an office, all that stuff.
Yeah. So much.
So in the
easier.
fall 2.0. And what if somebody wanted to buy a 1.0? They're just sold out. You got a
Well,
couple
we're taking
extra?
pre-orders right now.
Pre-orders for the 1.0 or the 2.0?
For the 2.0. Well, so we will do our
1.1?
next round of the current bike. The Portour is kind of the current bike we have.
Got it.
It's the classic double top tube French design. Our next model will be a step through, kind of. I hate to call it a ladies' bike, but like a step through.
I understand.
design.
They call that for like having a dress on. So if you're a guy who wears dresses or whatever, we have a lot of that going on.
We
So
get,
that's
it's
fine too.
San Francisco. So that
Whatever. I mean, you could be what's the a Viking. You could be a Viking. It's a Viking bike. We'll call it a Viking bike.
You see a ton of guys here in the streets rocking the brightly colored step through bikes. So
Yeah.
it's a progressive thing.
It's a listen. Who am I to judge? Listen.
So that's coming.
continued success with it, and if people want to check it out, FaradayBikes.com.
Faraday Bikes, and they can place an order. Our next production run is
Place an
shipping.
order.
Place
Love
an
it.
order. Get a pre-order in. It's $200 to reserve a bike.
That's not the
It's
bad.
refundable.
Yeah.
It's a bit low. Zero
Refundable.
risk.
Okay, and then it comes out when? 2 months later, 3 months later, you get it.
Those are going to ship by the end of this year.
Perfect. So get in now, and you get in that next run.
Yeah.
Maybe 200 of them or something. 300. We'll see.
A couple hundred, yeah.
Couple of hundred. All right. Listen, I made it in the USA right now,
Yeah.
but you can't do that when you start doing 2,000 bikes,
No,
3,000
it's not
bikes.
forever. So get it now. We'll talk.
Yeah. Although Elon Musk figured it out, maybe you got to talk to Elon and figure out how he did it. All right. Listen, great success, Adam. Everybody check out Faraday Bikes, and thanks for tuning in. Bye bye.